You know the feeling. You hand in a big assignment and then you just wait. We all know that getting fast, personalized feedback is one of the absolute best ways to learn. But let's be real, for a professor with hundreds of students, that's a nearly impossible task. But what if AI's real job wasn't to just be a better grader? What if it could help us build those better graders in a way you'd never expect? Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with what I'm calling the grading gridlock. Then we'll get into the big problem with how we try to automate feedback right now. And after that, things get a little sci-fi with a wild idea. Can AI generate fake students? We'll look at how they tested it, what the data actually showed, and finally, what it all means for the real power of AI in education. So let's really set the stage here. The central problem, especially in big university classes, is this grading gridlock. It's a total logjam. Everyone agrees that feedback is absolutely critical for learning, but actually giving it quickly and personally to a class of 200, 300 students, it's just a massive logistical nightmare. And hey, this isn't just a feeling we have, it's a well-documented problem. The researchers behind this very study put it plainly. In these big courses, the kind of detailed one-on-one feedback that actually helps you improve often gets delayed or just doesn't happen at all. And that's the core challenge we're trying to crack. So, what's the obvious answer? Technology, right? Let's get AI to automate the whole feedback process. It sounds like the perfect solution. But these AI systems, well, they have a big secret. They are incredibly thirsty for data, and I mean a lot of data. Now, to make sure an AI grader is fair and not just making stuff up, you need a solid framework. That's where something called an analytic rubric comes in. The easiest way to think about it is like a super detailed grading checklist. It breaks down an assignment into key parts like clarity or use of evidence, so the AI has a clear, structured guide to follow. On paper, the process seems pretty straightforward, right? Step 1, you collect a bunch of student answers. Step 2, you have human experts, professors, TAs, grade hundreds of them using that rubric. Step 3, you feed all that juicy data to an AI model. And boom, Step 4, the AI can now grade new stuff all on its own. Simple enough? Or is it? Well, here's the catch. Here is the bottleneck. To train an AI model that you'd actually trust with student grades, you need a ton of examples. We are talking 500 to 600 answers, each one carefully graded by a human. That is so expensive and unbelievably time-consuming, and for most courses, it's just not going to happen. So this massive bottleneck is where this research gets really, really cool. The researchers looked at this problem and asked a truly radical question. What if we don't have to go through the pain of collecting all that real data? What if we could just make it? And this is the heart of the whole experiment. Could a super powerful AI like GPT-4o essentially role-play as hundreds of different students? Could it generate a whole synthetic dataset of answers that are good enough to train our grading model? I mean, if this works, it could completely sidestep that data collection problem and make these amazing feedback tools available to basically everyone. But you can't just tell an AI, hey, write me some student answers. You need to be able to control it. So the researchers came up with this brilliant little concept they called knowledge profiles. Imagine the rubric has 4 parts. Well, they could represent a student's performance with a simple 4-digit binary code. A 1111 is a perfect answer. A 1000 is a student who got the first concept right but whiffed the other 3. This basically gave them a remote control to tell the AI exactly what kind of student to be. And they got pretty sophisticated with it. They tried 2 main strategies. The first was straightforward. Just give the AI a knowledge profile and say, go. The second was more advanced. They'd give it the profile and tell it to include specific, common mistakes that real students make to see if that made the fake answers even more realistic. Okay, so that's the big idea. It sounds amazing in theory, but the real question is, did it actually work? Let's take a look at how they put this whole thing to the test. So this diagram here basically lays out their whole battle plan. On the left, you see they start with real course materials and create those knowledge profiles we just talked about. Then right in the middle, that's the magic. The AI generates hundreds of synthetic answers, and finally on the right, they put it all to the test, evaluating how good those fake answers are and whether they can actually train a working grading model. And this wasn't some abstract theoretical exercise. The task was a real question from a first-year discrete math class. They had a treasure trove of 585 real student answers to use as a benchmark. Against that, they had GPT-4o generate hundreds of its own answers. The goal was simple. How does the fake stuff stack up against the real deal? All right, now this is where things get really, really interesting. Because the AI was good, for sure, but the data showed some crucial differences between what the AI made and what real students do. The results were pretty surprising.
So let's start with the most basic question. Before we even think about training models, did the AI's answers even feel like real student work? Were they just as messy, creative, and, well, human? This picture tells a huge part of the story. See all those blue dots? Each one is a real student's answer. Look how they're spread all over the place. That's human creativity and diversity in action. Now look at the orange crosses. That's the AI. See how they're all clumped together in tight little groups? This was the first major finding. The AI was consistent, but it just didn't have the wild, unpredictable diversity of real students. So what we have here is a classic trade-off. Real data is amazing. It's diverse, it captures all the weird ways we think, but man, is it a pain to collect and label. AI data, on the other hand, is super fast, super cheap, but it's a little vanilla. It lacks that creative spark. Okay, so the AI's answers are a bit more uniform, a little less creative. But here's the million-dollar question. Does that actually matter? Is this less diverse data still good enough to achieve our original goal of training a high-quality AI grader? And here it is, the punchline. When they tried to train a grader using only the AI's fake data, total failure. It just wasn't good enough on its own. Now, using a small set of real data, say just 100 answers, gave kind of meh results. But here's the magic. When they took that small set of 100 real answers and added the 500 AI-generated ones on top, the performance shot way, way up. It was a huge improvement. And that right there, that's the key. That leads us to the most important takeaway from this entire study. The AI couldn't replace the real human data, but what it could do was make a small amount of real data incredibly more powerful. This isn't a story about replacement, it's about augmentation. And you know, the researchers themselves said it best. If you're in a situation where you can only manage to grade 100 or 200 examples by hand, not that crazy 600 number, then using AI to generate a bunch more synthetic data is a total game changer. It's like having a tireless assistant who can churn out practice problems to make your main model so much stronger. And this is why this all matters so much. This approach could basically democratize high-quality automated feedback. An instructor at a smaller college or a high school teacher who doesn't have a whole team of TAs can now get in on the action. With just a small, manageable set of real student work, they can use AI as a force multiplier to build a tool that gives all their students the kind of fast, personalized feedback they deserve. So this all leaves us with a final, really provocative thought to chew on. We came into this thinking of AI as a potential teacher or a grader, but this research shows its real power, at least for now, might be in acting as a synthetic student, a tireless assistant that helps us build better systems for humans. And if it can do that, what other roles in education could AI step into and completely transform how we learn?